Good afternoon, everybody. Domestic football is back. Norwich City are back. You can decide whether or not that's a good thing. We await, of course, the team news, which is about to drop in a minute or so. We're expecting some Norwich City changes from obviously that team that ended the September, that most recent block of games with that Derby Day defeat. Connor Southwell joined by Paddy Davitt. We've got about a minute or so until that team news drops. Obviously, some stuff to catch up on, but obviously no Jose Cordoba, who got injured over the break. And yeah, I think we're sadly going to be probably talking about somebody else in a moment or so as well, which we will await to do. Paddy, before we come to that team news, which again is very, very imminent, so you can answer this in a word if you like, but it's a big day, isn't it?
Darren Huckabee, go and have a look at his Twitter feed. He knows what he's talking about. And I think he's called it the biggest game here in years for a lot of reasons. Players need to turn up, need to front up, need to deliver. I'll weigh in with what Hooks has got to say on the matter. Biggest game for years here at Carrow Road.
And here is the 11 to take on that team. It is Kovacevic in goal, Stacey, Medic, Darling and Jeffrey Schlupp at left back, Maatsen and Kenny McLean as a 2. We are expecting a 3 behind the striker of Jurasek, Marcondes and Schwartau, with Josh Sargent leading the line. Interesting name on the subs bench. Tony Springett makes the subs bench for Norwich City. Long absence for him. It is Grimshaw, Fisher, McConville, Wright, Topic, Springett, Gibbs, McCarmer and Sienats. No Lucio Mahovo at all in that matchday squad, which has obviously pushed Jeffrey Schlupp forward in terms of a starting spot. Paddy, that's probably the place to start, isn't it? The left-back role. Obviously, we saw Callum Fisher there for the last couple of games. He's dropped out. Jeffrey Schlupp comes in. What are your thoughts first and foremost on that?
Well, first and foremost, we don't have anything to add in terms of Mahovo, why he's out of the 20 as it is. If it's a fitness-related thing, we obviously had a touch point with Liam Manning on Wednesday. There was no indication there that there was any issue with Mahovo. We know he's had this long road back, but I think he'd had 2 cameos. Did he come on at Ipswich? I think he did, didn't he? So I think he had come on in the previous 2 games before the international break. That's one we'll clearly bowl at Liam. My fear is it is fitness-related because I don't know why he would, given how highly he talked him up, why you move him out of the 20. On the flip side of that, I guess Schlupp coming in is that experience factor that, to go back to the earlier point about what Hooks has said, this could be a game, certainly in this environment, where you're going to need players who've been around the block, know how to handle maybe if it turns in terms of the mood in this place, and maybe there's that in play as to why Schlupp starts today. I'm not overly surprised to see Fisher come out. I just think that's a square peg in a round hole for me, playing him over there on the left-hand side. He's a right-footed player. He needs to play on the right-hand side. And at the moment, that clearly in Manning's mind is Jack Stacey. So not surprised to see Fisher come out. Clearly a surprise at this point without knowing the full story, why Mahovo isn't in the 20. And then further forward, I think, that's one aspect. But for me, my eyes drawn to Marcondes and Jurasek in that front 4 around Sargent. I like that. I like Marcondes, for me, had to come in because we go back to the last game here, West Brom. That looked a lot better in terms of getting people in and around Josh Sargent with creativity and who can technically be very good and handle the ball and connect midfield to forward areas and not have those huge disconnects where Sargent has increasingly looked isolated. So for me, Marcondes had to come back in today. I could understand maybe Ipswich away. You don't want to roll the dice with him, but Jurasek is the interesting one, and if that Cernat's dropping out, I don't think there'll be too many Norwich fans on here or anywhere for that matter digesting that news, thinking that Cernat deserves to keep his place. So it's another opportunity for Jurasek. What was the game here where him and was it Wrexham? I think it was the opening goal there. It was him and Stacey combined. Let's see a little bit more of that today, maybe, and then we're edging to a point where Jurasek has to be ahead of Cernat for me in the pecking order because he hasn't done enough by everybody's measure so far this season. So I like the front 4. Schwartau clearly has to play now because he's added a goal there at Portman Road, but his all-round game, that what Manning wants from his front players is to press high. He's tailor-made for that because of his raw athleticism and his power and his box-to-box running. So he has to be in that mix now. And as if that is the case, then I like the 4. I like the front 4, but they obviously need to perform. There is a slight concern, I guess, with Medic coming back in. If he wants to play that higher line defensively, that's not really his game, so that's a concern. And as me and Sam said on the preview show yesterday, it places a real onus now on if you've got Medic in a high line and you can't really rely on him when the ball goes in behind, you need to be better in your midfield areas to control the ball, control the tempo, and that will be the job for Mattson McLean today.
Yeah, Carl thinks it's an uninspiring team. Andy making the point about the 11 and the need for a win, which we will, of course, come on to. So, yeah, some very interesting selections. Again, we're talking about 4 changes. I did want to bowl this one at you, Paddy, because, again, I know you mentioned this on the preview show yesterday. Jacob Wright, I mean, that now feels like Liam Manning has settled on his preferred midfield too, as obviously the changes in and around that, both in the back line and in the front line. But again, is there an element of surprise that Jacob Wright hasn't earned a reprieve in this game?
No.
That's what you said yesterday.
That's what I said. I said no, I expect it, because I think that's where Manning has now set his stall out that he wants in his midfield. Probably Mattson and McLean now. Topic, his levels have dropped off a bit. Maybe players who he knows within the margins of what he's demanding from his central midfield he's going to get, and he's going to get week in and week out. You could debate whether that is the case. For me, it's crying out for a right to come in and get the right players around him in the centre of the park. Because if, again, today it's like Ipswich, their best method of actually creating chances is from the forward press rather than controlling the ball in midfield areas, then I'm sorry, Jacob Wright isn't going to get much of a look in from here on in, it's safe to say. Under this manager, anyway.
Yeah, it is. I'm just trying to look at the last time Tony Springett was involved in a matchday squad. It's been a long time, hasn't it? He's been out with a back injury, certainly. Makes his return to the first team. Certainly been training for a little while. Intriguing that he gets onto the bench. One appearance for the under-21s this season, it looks like. And I'm just going back to last season in terms of the minutes that he did play. It certainly felt like a long time coming. Again, there was a couple of under-21 appearances, and I think he made a championship squad quite early, didn't he? There was a couple. Yep. So this will tell you the last time he was in a matchday squad was the 2-0 defeat away at Sheffield Wednesday last season, which came after that 2-1 defeat at Cardiff, where Norwich were completely injury ravaged, weren't they? Yeah. In terms of their squad.
So last year, basically.
Yeah, it's basically been a whole year out for Tony Springett on the bench this afternoon. I mean, from a personal perspective, that's going to be a big moment for him. I've seen a few people, and look, I'm asking a question, it's not an opinion, but a few people, and I'll maybe scroll one of them up, talking about what it shows for the squad depth, the fact that someone who's been out for that long period of time is on the bench and around the depth of the squad. Fair comment, bit harsh. What's your thoughts?
Well, it probably does underlock both of those points. I mean, obviously no Quisgard and no Jallo in those areas of the pitch, so no Forson either. But yeah, it does pose the question that given the scale of outlay over the summer, given the turnover in terms of head count of players, that 2 or 3 injuries in those areas, and you're now relying on a guy to come in on the bench who hasn't kicked the ball for 12 months. So, yep, justified, valid questions for me about the squad depth or lack of. But it is a nice personal story for Tony Springett. Let's be honest, he's not really shown thus far in a Norwich shirt that he's going to be one who's going to be a game changer, if we're being brutally honest. And, I look at that bench and there's a few too many in that category for me. So if that 11 aren't performing, I don't have a huge amount of confidence you can turn to that bench in the second half and really look Makama aside maybe on current evidence and feel that they're going to influence the game in a positive fashion. Again, that comes back round to the squad or lack of. I've just actually caught my eye now. There's an Norwich player over there on the far side in front of the south stand who's going through a warm-up, sort of one of those not involved but doing a bit.
It might be Theo Adelusi.
Is that who it is? Yeah.
But possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't see because he had his back to us, but I didn't wonder whether that was Mahovo. But you might be right. But there's definitely an Norwich player out there anyway, doing a bit of activation work anyway. But I don't think it is Mahovo. But it would concern me if we get 65 minutes in and he's turning to the bench and Tony Springett is getting ready to come on, if I'm honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such, as you say.
To put, Alex puts the opposite point across. That's fair enough. But I'll go back to you've spent tens and tens of millions and you've brought in, well, at least you've shuffled the pack in terms of 12 new players in. Was it? I think it's reasonable to expect that they would have more depth than having to turn to a player who hasn't kicked the ball in 12 months.
Yeah, and it probably shows where they are in terms of those wide options, right? In terms of how maybe short they are in those areas. It is certainly in terms of frontline options, Schwartau and Jurasek, and I'm not even sure we could completely classify Oscar Schwartau as a wide option. So, it's that's very interesting.
Robin's quite positive now. He's pushing forward Robin's comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly think, like you do, from an attacking perspective, feels like there's a bit more oomph in that, doesn't there, than maybe what we saw at Portman Road. Obviously, we know Mirko Topic was playing a particularly specialised role on that day, which did have some joy, but didn't have too much in possession. You've got to feel that front four, and probably the three, more importantly, behind Sargent, they should be finding Josh Sargent with more frequency than they have done. Should be in the word.
Yeah, should be, yeah. I mean, I'm leaning a lot into the West Brom game, and I know West Brom subsequently went to Millwall and got embarrassed, so maybe they're not the best barometer. You know, that's a club under transition under Ryan Mason. But that was probably the first time we turned up here and watched the Manning side at Carrow Road actually camp themselves in for a prolonged period and have that high line, and then midfielders playing slightly further forward than they have been, and likewise strikers. And the net effect was Sargent was far better supported. Didn't really translate into a huge amount of additional chances for him on the night, but there was a threat level there which made you think, with a bit more quality from a Jurasek, for example, today, maybe Schwartau now with that added confidence boost of getting on the score sheet in a derby, that they can produce the degree of quality service that Josh Sargent, if he gets, he will score. It's as simple as that. I mean, the hardest part of this should be finding somebody to score goals, because that's what they always say. That's why on the open market, when it comes to the transfer window, strikers normally command the biggest fees because they're the most prized commodity. Well, Norwich have arguably the best striker in the division. So, for me, working back from that, it should be less onerous a task for Liam Manning and his coaching staff to actually find players who can provide what Sargent needs and put that platform around him that isn't. How many podcasts have we done now of late where it's, you know, we're digesting his touches in the opposition defensive penalty box as opposed to too many.
More than he's had touches. That's probably it.
Exactly, yeah. That cannot be right. Structurally, you don't have to have a UEFA Pro licence to know that if your main man is doing more work in his own defensive area or his own defensive third of the pitch than in the attacking third, then you aren't setting that team up in a way which maximises what he is, which is a proven goal scorer at this level. So, you know, it feels like every game now it's another opportunity, but it is effectively game 10, and it's another opportunity for those three around him to say, no, hang on, we're going to be now the chief support links to Josh Sargent, and if they can, like Mark Condis did, to be fair, against West Brom, you know, make a compelling case to start this sort of game again, then, you know, hopefully it translates into service for Josh Sargent, which will mean goals, which you then ultimately would hope would mean a Norwich win today. And Lord, do they need one.
Oh, goodness me, let's hope so. Let's bring you the Bristol City team. They, of course, for as much as we mentioned Norwich City's injuries, are dealing and battling with a real injury crisis themselves in central midfield. No Jason Knight, no Max Bird, no Joe Williams, all of whom played really significant roles in that Liam Manning team that did get to the playoffs last season. They line up with Vitek in goal, expecting that to be a back three of Tanner, Dickey and Atkinson. A four of McCrory, Viner, Randell and Neto Borges, with Twine and Mametti either side of Emil Rees. Their subs bench, Max O'Leary makes the bench for the first time this season. Roberts, Morrison, Sykes, Peckover, Yaboa, Armstrong and Meulu as well makes up their team. And yeah, I mean, Zach Viner, if it is going to be him stepping into that central midfield position, certainly isn't a central midfielder. So it goes to prove that it's not just Norwich City kind of battling with injuries. And you think of Gerhard Struber, they're going to be, he's from the Red Bull school, isn't he? So we can expect a team, a Bristol City team, that are going to press high and with energy and with purpose. So this is really perfectly poised. But let's go back to where we started really. And as you said, Hux has tweeted out this morning. I think he's bang on. It is a very, very big afternoon, because I think it's fair to say, and I saw it in the flesh on Wednesday night. There's a lot of anger, not just about what's happening on the pitch here, but also about what is happening off the pitch as well. The whole place feels like, I know, look, everyone always needs a win, but especially today, especially in this moment, a win would be brilliant, I think, for everyone involved.
Yeah, there's no constituency inside the stadium today that has any connection to green and yellow who would want the alternative. Let's get it straight. Yeah, there's frustration, there's anger, certainly the off-the-field elements around the revamp delivery, and messaging or lack of, an engagement or lack of with the most affected constituency, i.e. those 3,500 supporters, season ticket holders, loyal Norwich supporters. So we know all that. We know that. You were there midweek. You felt the anger. But that said, you know, today, for me, it's about Liam Manning, really. I on a human level, I think, given the year that man's had, and it's it's pertinent as it's Bristol City here today, and all that happened when he was there in terms of his family. That on a human level, I would like to see that man get a result today, and won't cure any or all of the ills, but it will provide a bit of respite. And Lord knows, if you're a Norwich fan coming here today, having seen them not win a game in 5 here at Carrow Road, surely that is something to cling on to. Much more loftier ambitions than that we know this season, but it has to be a start somewhere. And why not today against a Bristol team who, as much as we're introspectively looking at Norwich are 1 win in 8, Bristol are 2 wins in 9. So by no manner of means is this a team who come to Carrow Road and should be leaving with 3 points if Norwich set their stall out. And those players relate to what Hawks is talking about, but also Manning more pertinently, who's talked today about when it was bowled at him by me midweek about, effectively Bristol go ahead, this place could turn, how toxic that's going to feel and how toxic that's going to be in the eye of that at the front of the house or his players on the pitch. What do you do with that? And he's just called for bravery. He's called for players to show leadership, to step forward, accept that responsibility and drag others with them. So their words, fine. Let's see some actions today. And if that comes together and they get a result, even if it, as I fear, it'll be more of a dogged type performance than anything of a polished or refined nature, because how could it be really now, given the backdrop this season so far? But just come off this pitch at full time, you've won a game, and then that tour around won't be to the catcalls and boos. It'll be to applause.
Seats, yeah.
It'll be to applause, and it's then something to build on to take it into 2 away games. That's all we want today, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a matchday programme in front of you. There's some interesting words from Zoe Webber along a similar vein, actually, on that front. Yeah, in terms of actually, I think one of the paragraphs, I don't want to paraphrase completely, but I think it says, at this moment in time, we're not delivering. To a point, our words are not good enough. Right now, our supporters need something to get behind, and that has to start.
It's almost like I'd read
today.
That
it is almost like you read that comment, which I don't think you had you? So, yeah, and I think that is a point, because there is always a little bit of chicken and egg point to this. And of course, I'm sure the crowd will come here energised and certainly from the off willing to get behind this Norwich team. But then there needs to be some substance, didn't there, in terms of performance, in terms of creativity, in terms of attacking. All of that feels like what we, thank you very much, need to see this afternoon. It needs to be some emphasis in terms of what Norwich City are doing as well. So yeah, we will see what we get.
So I'm handing out to you.
Yeah, you've become a distributor. Yeah. Let's sort of try and predict then. How do you see this going this afternoon?
Sorry, I wasn't aware of this. Website issues. Are you aware of this, Connor?
News to me.
First I've heard, Simon. Yeah, you might need to let us know a little bit more. Presumably, if you're consuming on the we don't know which platform you're on, so we won't get into a debate about that. But you can always message us if there's any issues there. That's the first we've heard.
Yep.
We're not aware of any issues, so apologies. Sam said 1-1 previous show. I think it could be that, because it's 2 teams who are in. Clearly, the results would tell you that, and obviously injuries for both sides now as well. They're missing some key players, so that might end up in a bit of a stalemate, which I don't think will suit certainly the Norwich aspect. But at least it would be a first positive result of sorts at Carrow Road this season. I don't think it will sate the demand for this. This needs to change and change quickly. But having said that, you would hope the urgency that Norwich must go out and attack this with today, and all that backdrop that we've talked about, and trying to change, as Manning said, this is now a period probably from here to the next international break that they can change the mood, they can change the energy around the football club. Well, that only happens if you win games of football. So, for me, I'm going to stay positive and think maybe Sargent comes to the party and they win 2-1. But I don't expect it to be anything other than a pretty grinding watch yet again. But if it is, and they come out the right side of the result, which they haven't done 5 times here this season at Carrow Road, then for me personally, I'd sign for that today. But, not papering over any of the major issues that clearly are still in front of Liam Manning, this squad and this football club more broadly. So you, Connor?
Yeah, just win, isn't it? I think that's it. It doesn't matter how you do it, particularly at this stage. They just need to get something over the line here. I think it's probably likely to end a draw if I'm being honest. in terms of you look at the two noted. Okay, we will look into that. So yeah, I think two teams that probably need a result. Obviously, Bristol City. We mentioned their squad issues. We mentioned where Norwich City are at. I could see there being some nervousness actually at the start of the game, and it's going to be interesting to see maybe who emerges to that and who wrestles control of this game as well. So yeah, I'm gonna join Sam and go for a 1-1 on this occasion. I just feel it's difficult at this moment in time.
Oh yeah, no, I mean
to predict a win based on what we've seen. But of course,
it's mainly the need for respite and having a pleasant weekend, as opposed to my fear if it went badly the other way is we might then be in a different type of cycle this weekend. Yeah. No prizes for guessing what I'm alluding to. So, and I'm not saying there's any prospect of that. I'm just saying if the wheels come off and it's really, really bad, then the reaction will be thus that you feel that might be the tipping point. So we'll see. But I certainly don't want that. I'm not advocating for that. What I want is by Carrow Road standards this season, an actual pleasurable weekend, because we can all reflect on a win and 3 points.
Very quickly, do you think, I guess we're probably getting into the realms of the manner of it, but would a draw be enough, you think, to maybe silence some of those frustrations?
Probably not. It's hard to set the benchmark there when you're talking about a fan base.
Sort of caveats, isn't
it? I guess it's the manner of that. I mean, if they really have a go and pound away, and maybe there's a bit of bad luck or a bit of poor decision making, and they walk off the park with a draw, then maybe. But if it's another stodgy, don't need the ball, it's almost type of game, because it's just there's very little creativity or very little spark, and it's settled by set pieces or something of that nature, or mistakes. No, that won't suffice, I don't think, for anybody, even if it was a draw. It's getting to the point for me now where it's results, but it's also, can you see a drastically improved performance level? Because that is as Manning himself has said, it's only through getting the performance bar higher that you can then worry about stringing results together. If the performances are nowhere near, then you'll pick up the odd result along the way, because it's a numbers game in the Championship. But over the piece, certainly where Norwich have pitched this season, you're going to fall short. So it has to be about performance as much as result.
Yeah, well, obviously Norwich start the day. I was just trying to look at some results as they are at the moment, because they start the day 2 points. Well, there you go. They start the point, and then actually as it stands, because Oxford are winning at Derby, that means that Norwich start the afternoon 1 point off the relegation zone. And 2 places, obviously Blackburn fall in with 7, but obviously have that game in hand against Ipswich and Derby, who Norwich play on Tuesday night there as well. So that's an interesting thing as well. Probably unlikely today that they will drop into the bottom. Even where the fact we're having this conversation is slightly maddening, but
Forget
there we go. Let's leave that, and hopefully that's we're not talking about come the final whistle. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Pinkham.com, if you can get on there, is the place to go for all of the coverage, analysis and reaction to this afternoon's game here at Carrow Road. Feels big, however you cut it. See you on the other side.